right. And I'm going to say a prayer. Closing my eyes and placing my hands on my heart, taking in that breath of love and gratitude, that deep cleansing breath. Breath that allows us to come back to our center and quiet our minds. We're grateful for this time to reconnect with our hearts, with each other. Grateful for our willingness and desire to continuously have open hearts, open minds, and our willingness to have a healing, excuse me, shining away any and all blocks to love, and knowing that they are healed in this very moment. We're grateful for this loving, supportive community, for all of the earthly and heavenly helpers. We ask that they join us now, surrounding and supporting us, supporting the technology we get to use to come together. Blessing each one of us here, all those who may listen later, blessing this call. And we're grateful that we are able to share those blessings, our expanding awareness and our willingness and the love that we are with everyone because we're one with them. In grace and gratitude, we let it be. And so it is. Amen. So we're in chapter 26 still, section 7, the laws of healing. And I don't think it was just because this was a longer section, but I really did have to, or not have to, I just was prompted to get up and walk away from this reading a couple of times this morning. I was glad that I was up so early so that I could take my time reading it and really absorb it as I was taking it in. So what I'm going to start us with is paragraph 6. And I was prompted after reading this to look up the Webster's dictionary definition of amenable, because I mean, I knew amenable meant like I agreed with, but the definition that I was drawn to in this case was capable of submission as to judgment or test. So I'm keeping that definition of amenable in mind when I'm reading this. Again, paragraph 6. It is impossible that one.
I'm sorry, Linda, what page are we on? I'm kind of lost, sorry.
That's okay. So we're in chapter 26, section 7, the laws of healing. In my book, it's page 515, but my book is ancient, so I don't know if
I found it. Thank you
okay.
so much.
Thank you. So paragraph 6. It is impossible that one illusion be less amenable to truth than are the rest. But it is possible that some are given greater value and less willingly offered to the truth for healing and for help. No illusion has any truth in it, yet it appears some are more true than others, although this clearly makes no sense at all. And so what I was understanding when I read that, and then when I went to look up online what Webster said amenable, the definition for amenable was, is, again, it's like there are no degrees of difficulty, right, in miracles, and that there is not one single thing that is more difficult or easier to have a miracle happen. And so what I was thinking was, I've been able to pretty easily hand over everything that has to do with my finances. And I'm not fearful about finances really at all. I did have that moment last week that I was talking about. But then after we got together, I had somebody tithed me $100, and I had 5 spiritual counseling appointments set up. So, if I had any fear that I had around money was pretty much put to rest very easily and quickly. But I don't seem to have that same willingness to let go of things that have to do with the body. That I am still putting more trust and faith in what I have been taught and told by doctors, by society, about, for myself, about diabetes and high blood pressure. And I'm sure that that came from, my childhood, dealing with my grandmother's death and my mom's illnesses, and then my husband's illnesses, and then my mom's being in hospice. And like, there was so much importance, and by importance, I mean separation, given to illness, to things that had to do with the body. And so what I'm interested in doing now is allowing whatever is the resistance or reluctance to surrender the fears around the body, or the importance around the body, and definitely the separation that has to do with the body. I am really interested in surrendering that and turning that over to higher Holy Spirit self, and having a miraculous healing. So I'm sure y'all have your own versions of what you are seeing as special or separate, that you can't seem to let go of or heal. So I'm inviting you to ponder that for yourself. Chris, go ahead.
I wonder if I can ask a question about when your grandmother died and when your mom was on hospice. And now if you have some health problems, can you kind of give me an example of how you felt when all of that happened? Or I just want to sort of understand that, because, my body issues could be different than that.
It could be, but I don't think so.
Well,
This is what I'm coming to realize.
yes, it's all.
Yeah, it really
So
was fear.
Over your healing of your body to the Holy Spirit. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
And
All right. I get it now.
yeah, what really precipitated, beginning with my grandmother's passing when I was a teenager, was the fear that bodies could die, and that people that I loved could be taken from me. And I honestly can't tell you exactly all that's coming up around this yet. But I am interested in doing some journaling. And if Holy Spirit has it in for me to find out what the root cause is, then I'm interested in learning that, but I'm more interested in healing it than discovering what it's all about.
So you want to take away the worry about if you have a health problem, you want to
Yes.
turn it over, and you're struggling with that. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And part of that is because the world tells me different than my Course in Miracles knowing.
Mhm.
So my knowing is that what this text is telling me is true. That all it takes for me to experience a miracle is my changing my perception.
Got it.
And so I can do that in an instant. But it appears to be a little more difficult because I have doctor's appointments that I have to go to. I have medications that I have to take. And if I asked anybody, any normal human being that's not a Course in Miracles student or my doctor about healing this, they are not of that mindset that this can be healed. They are of the mindset that I will remain on medication for diabetes and high blood pressure for the rest of my life.
I gotcha.
And what
Right.
I'm saying is, what I know in my heart of hearts is that my connection with God, with my source, is way more powerful.
Mm.
You know, it's that having the faith of the mustard seed can literally move mountains, and really believing that and taking that into every cell, fiber, and function of my being. I really do believe that I can heal from this. There's just something to it right now that I'm not, there's still like a veil is what I'm feeling. There's like a veil in front of me that is still keeping me from moving forward in that healing, if that makes sense.
Oh, yes, yes. I'm glad I asked the question because, you want to look to the light. You want to, you don't want, I feel you. I understand, other instances that have happened to me. So I know
Yeah.
you can do it. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Penelope, and then Hamira and Linda Kay.
I'd like to ask a question first, then I'd like to just speak about a little bit of what you've just spoken about, Linda, and then I'll let you go to other people because then there's some things in the text as well I'd like to just speak about. But so my question first of all is, could you just speak or say a little bit more about, and there's clearly a reason presumably why I'm asking this, when you say that your family, can't remember exactly how you worded it now. Oh, that's it. Put so much importance on sickness. Can you just speak a little bit about that? And then I'll add on to what you say, just talk about a little bit what you were talking about.
Yeah, I don't know if it was my family that put the importance on it, but it was my experiences with what happened with my family that made it feel important and scary, really. My grandmother died of a massive heart attack when she was in her mid-60s. And my mother had several different health challenges. She had cancer twice, she had heart disease, and then my husband, obviously he had diabetes, and then heart disease, and then kidney failure. So all of these things, there's so much seriousness around it that it makes it feel like it's especially bad and especially difficult to heal from. And so I'm still trying to discern what the healing is going to be around. And like I said, I don't have to know. I would like to know because I've always been interested. Like I used to read Nancy Drew stories when I was a kid, and being the detective, right? Trying to figure things out. So, you know, but I'm feeling like the seriousness that's around the situation and the fear that's around the situation that has to do with physical health and the societal beliefs, the medical community and scientific beliefs that we know of now, basically would say that you can't heal from this. You know, that this is not something that you come back from, that it will just, you'll continuously have to treat it and manage it, which to me is coping, basically. And, but it's not something that you'll ever get over. And, you know, if that's my path, I'm willing to accept that. I'm absolutely willing to accept that. But I would like to play with not taking it so serious and see what I can do with it.
That's so helpful, Linda, and I'd love to hold the space for you for that intention, and I'd also like to join you with that intention. And because it's one of the ways it's so helpful for me is it's two kind of things. One is it's reminded me that as a young child, and I'd probably be under 5, the first memory of this is because my father had, I'm going to say digestive problems, because it's only, I don't really know how else to explain it. And so eventually he went on to have like operations for stomach ulcers and a multitude of other things that kind of appear to be digestive related. But my first memory, as I say, was probably before the age of 5, of possibly coming in from school. And it would be, I just recall it being winter and coming in, and he would be in bed. And it like you've just described, it felt fearful to me, because maybe because it was dark and it was the winter months, but it was also that sense of that what I was picking up and perceiving was there's something bad happening. And that was kind of a theme for me, particularly with my father, because he had those kind of challenges throughout many years of his life. Occasionally my mother had some health issues, but it tended to be predominantly to do with migraines. But I did always distinctly remember feeling this fear, and there were times when, before we had like a phone in the house, of my mother having to leave my sister and I as 2 small children and go out and find a phone to ring for a doctor, because my father would need. So it's kind of interesting to kind of be reminded of that, and, you know, maybe to look at that. But then it's the other side for me is that, you know, even in my kind of probably mid-20s, I actually began refusing all prescribed drugs. And somehow, somewhere, and I've never really understood this, I had this sense that on one level, it was possible to heal without the use of drugs, etc. But I also had like these opinions about it, in the sense that it didn't make sense to me that a drug could do the same for one drug could do the same for everybody. And also, when people would have a drug and then there would be side effects, so they'd have to have another drug to counteract the side effects. And although predominantly until the kind of the later years in my parents' life, they didn't take drugs, it tended to be particularly for my mother was the blood pressure drugs, but they didn't particularly have drugs, because for most of the conditions my father had, there was no treatment via drugs. But it made me, and I say I don't really understand where this came from, that I didn't want to go that path, and so I started refusing all drugs. And to this day, I will only go to a doctor if I absolutely have to, and will not take anything. And I often used to get into kind of conflict with them when they would prescribe drugs, and I'd say, but how can you give me that drug when you don't actually know what you're treating me for? And I kind of got to the point where I thought it's just not worth me going this route. And so I tended to go the more alternative healing route. So it's interesting because it feels like there's the fear, there's the conflict about, you know, where some of this came from, but it's also, for me, on one level, believing that it's possible to heal ourselves and to heal the mind, but yet, like you're talking about, there's this reluctance to hand over some of the things. And even if I hand over some of the things that I struggle with, not doing it consistently, there isn't the consistency in doing it. And so when you were talking, there was like, I was almost in my mind asking that question, why is it for me, and probably for many of us, there's that resistance to handing certain things over and not others, and what is that preference about? So I'll leave it at that for now, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Penelope. And that's one thing that I will say too around this is, and I think part of this had to do with our call. I don't remember if it was yesterday's call. I think it was last week's call, our prayer partner call, where I had been doing okay for a couple of days, but we were talking about how our week went. And I was sharing about how irritable bowel syndrome has seemed to be intensified over the summer. And I had to excuse myself during our conversation to use the bathroom, you know? And so it's like complete evidence of how the mind is over the matter, right? And I'm still trying to formulate in my awareness what this is going to look like for me, because I'm not interested in shaming myself for not being a good enough spiritual student if I am not able to, in this seeming body world of form, heal diabetes, high blood pressure, irritable bowel syndrome, even depression and anxiety. I'm not interested in beating myself up if I can't seem to do it in physical form. I'm interested in kind of playing with it and seeing what I could do with it. So I might do similar to what I was doing when I quit smoking last year. Just be very light about when I'm taking my medications, you know, just claiming how good they are for my body while I'm taking them. If I'm eating sweets, just claiming the goodness that I'm getting out of them, whatever, you know, something that's a little on the starchy side, you know, that my intellectual mind is saying, well, this is a lot of carbs for somebody that has diabetes, right? So I'm just interested in playing with it right now and seeing where it takes me. So, but I thought I would share the process because it came into my mind. And this is what happens when I wake up at 4 a.m. So thanks, Penelope. Hamira.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. You know, and as you were talking, Linda, my mind was going so many places, like, I want to say this, I want to say that, I want to share this, I want to share that, but I don't even know what I'm sharing right now. So just excuse me if I'm not making sense. But, you know, the part in that paragraph that you read where it says your preferences gives them no reality. Illusions are illusions and are false. Not one is true, and all must yield with equal ease to what God gave as answer to them all. And I remember, you know, when I was in my 20s, I want to say I was like 22 or 23, my boyfriend and I were hit by a drunk driver while after we went to see a movie, and we were crossing the street, and he died instantly. And I was hospitalized in ICU. They didn't know if I was going to make it. I did, obviously. But I had so much broken bones and nerve damage and all of that. And I remember, you know, even though I was so young, because the injuries were so severe, like the doctors would say things that you probably, because my left arm, it was all on my left side, was paralyzed for a year. You know, I had to have pins and stuff in my knees and whatnot. And they said, you probably won't use your arm. And I just did not believe that. I remember that vividly. And I had no spiritual background. I had really no connection that, you know, I probably believed in whatever fearful God, but I, you know, really nothing more than that. But there was somewhere in my mind was like, that's not true. I'm not going to believe that. And there was no evidence to show me otherwise, because I literally would go to physical therapy for months upon months upon months. And they would just say, move your little finger. Nothing would happen. I couldn't move anything. And within maybe 10 months, 11 months, the first thing that happened, I did literally start moving like one finger, just one finger, just a tiny bit, like it just, and that was a sign. And then it went to, you know, more fingers, then my hand, then it was my arm. And then it came back, all the nerve damage that they said it severed and all this, it came back. So, and then, you know, years later about, so I healed from, they said you can't ever like run because of this knee. I've ran all my life, you know, so those things I see for myself that I somewhere from perhaps past lifetimes, I had learned not to give in to what others say in that area. But then other things I believe, you know, my preference is like the illusions are real. So my father also had diabetes, and I saw him go through a lot of difficulties and one medication after the other, and it would cause all kinds of problems, you know. And so I was watching this documentary because my nephew has been diagnosed with diabetes type 1, who's 6 years old. And you know, it was all about the medical industry really using this as, you know, as one way of just making a lot of money, because they're just not open to the possibility that it could be healed. Well, now with stem cell research, there's a little bit of that, but for the most part, it was very much so. This person who was trying to do this, you know, interview and talking to like the president of the Diabetic Association, the guy got just so angry that there might be other evidence. He just wouldn't talk to him. So I remember sending this to my sister-in-law, Whitney, and she got so mad at me because she's so tied into the idea that it is so real. So, you know, but then for myself, Linda, like I'm terribly frightened, and it's a deep fear. Again, I remember undergrad being in a big psychology classroom with probably 600 other people. It was abnormal psychology. And it was a phenomenal class. I loved it. But one of the things that he showed was these very extreme parody cases of like psychosis, schizophrenia, and terror rang in my heart. Well, guess what? My brother has bipolar with psychosis. And we're going to, and it scares me. And then now I'm going, okay, I have to shift the meaning that I'm giving to this. This is another illusion. But my question to you is, you know how lessons 136, it says sickness is a defense against the truth. And it says, you know, sickness is not an accident. They're not unintentional. They're not made without our awareness, but we do it so quickly that we then take the amnesia pill and we act like we never decided this. And then it says, you know, the truth has a power far beyond defense, for no illusions can remain where truth has been allowed to enter, you know, and healing will flash across your open mind. I'm reading from it, as peace and truth arise to take the place of war and vain imaginings. So how you can see that doing that for a physical sickness, but if the mind is what causes, it's not, the body's not real. The body is a communication device. It's a projection of the mind. It's not real. So I can see us doing that for physical ailments, but then how does it work for mental? Because the mind is the mind. So is it that the brain and the mind are two different things? And is that I have to look at the brain as part of the body? Because that's the part I get confused about. So if you could talk about that a little bit. Thank you. Sorry, I rambled on.
No. I know that's how my mind is going right now too, since I read this morning. And yes, I would say the brain and the mind are two parts of the same whole. So, but I believe that I can heal my mind. I believe that I can align my mind with a healthy thought system, with the thoughts of God. And as far as the, the thoughts that brought illness for me likely are judgments and things that I believed about stress and how I was treating my body when I was under a lot of stress as a caregiver for 10 years or more. Just the buying into the amount of cortisol, which is a physical thing, right? The amount of cortisol that's running through my body because I'm under a lot of stress, and not having the time to do the exercise that I would have liked, and being either depressed or just too exhausted to create healthier meals for myself. Like, I could totally blame myself for all of this if I wanted to. And that is obviously where my mind went, that I bought into and fully absorbed this idea that because I was under so much stress for the past 10 plus years, that I became sick, that I made myself sick. And that now this appearance of diabetes and high blood pressure, I don't know if I would say it's a punishment, but it's definitely a cause and effect thing, because of what I did or did not do while under a lot of stress. And it is because of my belief in sickness. And
well, I love now that you're eating things and saying whatever I'm eating, like this is nourishing for my body. That's really changing that belief around whatever the world keeps telling us about the laws of health and the laws of this and the laws of that. Because if it's either the laws of God or it's the laws of nothing, you can't have both. But my question to you, okay, if somebody is, so if it's a mental illness and it's of the brain, and they are in that, how do they then, how is it, because we're using that right now, we're using our minds to see the truth so that we can walk towards the light, right? That we are. Right. How can someone that is in that space when their brain is sick, then how do they have a chance? How do they have a chance to heal? Because do you know what I'm saying? It's different than the body.
Absolutely. Well, it can be, and the thing is, because it's not you that's experiencing it, the only thing that you can do, and was the only thing that I could do around my husband and my mother's illnesses, is not judge it as being bad or wrong. That it was just something that they chose to have as an experience in this lifetime for whatever reason. I don't know what that reason is. If it had to do with an experience in their past or an experience in their ancestry, or just something that they chose to come into this life to play with, it's their life choice. My responsibility is to not see it as bad or wrong.
Yeah. I mean, and that 136, it talks about that. It talks about if you're holding judgments, if you are harboring attack thoughts, if you're planning for the future without a guide, then all those things are defenses, and judgments being one of them. Okay. Yeah. I got you. Always goes back to me. Thank you so much.
I know. It's all about me. It's all about me.
Thank you so much, Linda.
You're welcome, Humira. Linda.
Okay. Uber hot topic for me, and I could talk about this for the next 3 hours. And interesting that this lovely person was before me, because I'm going to speak on this topic. I had some things happen recently that were absolutely transformative. And I'll say they were spiritually transformative. So I'll try to keep this as brief as I can. My journey to illness, into the world of illness, after having been an athlete my entire life and a very robust, strong, physically strong person. 18 years ago, I got cancer, went through my cancer treatment. Late in the treatment, I was given a hormonal drug whose purpose it was to induce menopause in a non-menopausal woman. I then got introduced to my first suicidal episode, having never had any suicidal episodes in my life. If anything, I ran very high and very fast. And I did not understand that because I had no tools to cope with wanting to harm myself. And it seemed, it didn't align with my spiritual belief system at the time. Like, I don't know, God, I don't think God really, or spirit or source, higher power, doesn't really want me to kill myself. Like, I don't know, why would that be? So very confused. I pursued it because something just did not seem right. And then this month, in fact, this week, 17 years ago, I got diagnosed as bipolar. That then shed light on my entire family experience. Apparently, mental illness does run in my family. I didn't really know that, found out later. Had a very volatile childhood because my dad had bipolar, but we didn't know it. And he was cruel and harmful. And so I always joke that I have the trifecta of trauma: physical, emotional, sexual abuse. And so onward I went in my life, and I became a very high achieving person. But this cancer thing suddenly slowed me down in my own business. All right, didn't really have tools to cope with that. Like, no, slowing down. I had my surgery. I was interviewing a candidate the following day. Who does that? That's insane. So anyway, I get the bipolar diagnosis. Indeed, it was the hormonal drug that tripped the switch in my brain to allow the full manifestation of this so-called illness. Now, the cool part, and I also want to say, I had attributed this bipolar to destroying my marriage, just definitely destroying my finances. I've lost my 2 businesses during the pandemic, and it affects my health and well-being. That's how I got involved in Jennifer's work in the first place, because that's a big, messy life. And I was having anger, raging episodes that I did not know were trauma. All right, fast forward. I recently had a conversation with Betty, one of the spiritual students. I have shared this in other rooms, but I have to share it again because this has been life-changing. I'm talking to Betty while I'm in my trauma, I'm in my story, my marriage, I'm in my bipolar, I'm crying, life is all upset, and oh, woe's me, I think I'm the victim. And Betty said to me, she said, you're the full moon. What? You're the full moon. What's that? You're already whole. You're already healed. You're already complete. And that's how God sees you. Wow. Really? I'm sure I heard that somewhere in all these teachings. I think it was simply the metaphor that she used resonated with me. She said, you're showing up as a crescent moon right now. I can hear it in your voice. I hear it in your story. I hear your struggle. And you're really attached to this struggle, but you're already the full moon. And she said, all you need to do is step into your wholeness. I cannot begin to tell you how much that one aspect of our conversation has changed my life. Because when I go back into my little story, my little dramas. Oh, I think I'll be a victim for the next hour. I hear about my full moon. And I think, yes, this is how God sees me. So I can see myself that way. It's already happened. So to tie this in with the bipolar, a friend of mine about a week ago, we're on the phone. I've talked with him on and off about bipolar for years. He's one of the few people I can talk to. And we had a conversation about, well, I have bipolar. I am bipolar. And I told him, I don't say that anymore. I used to say I am bipolar. I have bipolar. I said, now I just say I have a bipolar brain. He said, oh, wrong. No. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, there is, my brain, the chemicals. And he said, no. He said, you have what are at times under certain circumstances, bipolar behaviors or actions. You, Linda, are not bipolar. And Betty told me the same thing. She said, Linda, you are not bipolar. So yes, I have an official diagnosis. And I also concur, it is in the best interest of my psychopharmacologist with expertise in neurology to promote God knows how many drugs. And in 18 years, I have experienced very serious and unpleasant and sometimes life-threatening drug interactions and hallucinations, tardive dyskinesia, which affects your mouth and it goes. So imagine going into a meeting with a CEO and that's what you do the whole time. And you can't stop it because it's like Parkinson's. And that's just from a drug I took for 2 weeks. And I had a lot of anger about that and had a lot of anger toward my doctor. Now I've learned through this coursework to let it go. So I don't want to diminish anybody's physical illness journey, because if you're experiencing diabetes today, this moment, that may be true. But I am absolutely, positively convinced beyond belief that that doesn't have to be true. And one of the meetings that I attend are with women who have reversed their diabetes by doing some healthy things with the guidance of God. So I'm thinking, wow, they're healing diabetes. That's pretty cool. And I'm healing bipolar. And there are some people who have this so-called mental disorder who have healed it. And almost always it's been through their faith work, their relationship with God, their meditation, working with other people who believe in the healing, who have the faith. I do believe there's a place for medication. There are extreme times and periods where somebody needs medication support because there is not equilibrium in the chemicals in the brain, and it will be for their own safety. I am not opposed. I actually took a drug last night that I almost never take. I took an emergency drug in a very tiny dose because I had done something which put myself at very high risk. And I wanted to reverse it. And I wanted to reverse it very quickly and definitively. And I prayed about it. And I also want to promote today, this is Jennifer Hadley's My Medicine Water. I think this is one of the greatest healing tools. I am so committed to this. I fill my water. I pray every evening, and saints and angels and relatives and you name it. And I ask very clearly and specifically, God, this is I could use assistance with the healing of my mind. Please help me to unlearn these unhealthy ways of thinking that I have used to harm myself without even knowing or understanding I was doing so. take this away. Take this away because I don't need it. I need to serve you. That is what I need. That's the deep desire of my heart. And I need to be of a well mind to do so, et cetera, so forth. So healing in my marriage, healing in other parts of my body, and whatever anger in the past that I had toward any part of my body, like a foot that was injured, and I had to stay off of it for 6 months. You might as well tell me just, oh, Linda, your foot, you can't use that for 6 months. You have to stay off it. Oh, thanks, doc. Why don't you just take a gun and shoot me in the head? Because for me, that's the same thing. I can't function without my foot because I don't know how to live without intensely moving my body. Well, guess what? I am learning there are ways to live without doing everything over the top. So that it tends to be how I live. And I have had many, many, many suicidal episodes. And I have been very blessed with other people in my life who either have bipolar and know how to work through a suicidal episode or don't, but they have God and they're compassionate and they pray me through it. They
Yeah.
talk in a loving, compassionate way. They don't see me as broken as I see myself. They see me as whole and they pull me in that direction. And lastly, to the question, and it wasn't my intention to answer this question, but it said, heal your mind with the thoughts of God. Every person who goes through a mental illness has a different journey in their mind. I know I am very close with many other people who have this because we're in a support group and also in classes, so we can help teach ourselves how to help ourselves with some very good tools. I hear their stories, they hear my stories. The common thread is suffering. The
Yeah, I would say
resistance.
that's true with physical and mental illness as well.
Yes, we are suffering, just like I see my foot. I choose to suffer because I'm not allowed to use it. My resistance, as you know, in Buddhism, this is the suffering I create. Right. If nobody gives you another option, if you don't know there's another choice, and you're having the darkest thoughts in the world that would terrify other people if they knew what those dark thoughts were, who you're going to kill. I was going to kill my husband a year ago. I really knew I was going to kill him because I was psychotic. I was raging. I couldn't control my behaviors. I don't want to kill him now.
Yeah, I honestly think, Linda, that you would be surprised at how many people, probably even how many people in this group have had similar experiences as that you, like what you were talking about. And my reason for bringing that up is because I know for me, one of the things that I have seen with the diabetes, the high blood pressure, the IBS, whatever thing I have been diagnosed with in the past, to me, it's all about separation. Mm-hmm. And it's all about specialness. I'm especially ill. I'm especially bad, so I can't heal from this. And, exactly what you were saying with the medication, if we're in a place where we are feeling like we need to have medication, even though in the course it's telling us that it's magic, by all means use the magic until you can get away without using the magic anymore. I have taken antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications, even as a course student, even as a spiritual counselor. I have taken those medications because I am not interested in judging myself when I feel I need them anymore. So
yeah,
You know,
Yeah,
just like Leslie was saying about if God is everywhere, why wouldn't he be in the medicine too? Absolutely he is. And
Yeah.
like Kathleen was writing in about the cure for diabetes. You know, medical science can also be a part of the miracle. And we can pray. And we can pray.
Yeah,
So thank you
I've
for
done
sharing all that.
I've done so much research.
Yeah. I'm not
it-
interested in doing research
yeah,
because
but
I know in my heart, I do not have to seek for my healing out in the world. It's all an inside job.
yes,
So, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but I do
Yeah.
want to let other people have an opportunity to
yeah.
speak.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
So first, I just wanted to see if Gwen or Suzanne would like to share because they had their hand raised earlier and then put them down.
Sure, I would real quick,
Okay.
Linda. I always appreciate everyone's input when everyone
Yeah.
shares. It's always so beneficial to all of us, no matter what we're experiencing and going through at any present
Yeah.
time. So just thank you, everyone. I was just thinking what different individuals were sharing about health and that type of thing. I've been someone who's been raised alternatively. I'm an alternative practitioner, but yet I look. Here's my mom. She died at 77, never taking medications. My aunt is 91, still living. My mom died, and my aunt's been taking, medications her whole life for her health, her heart, severe asthma, different things, almost have died, but she's still kicking, so I've been raised with a mindset, alternative is the only way, natural is best. So that I'm almost the opposite end of the spectrum where, stay away from the doctors, any medications and that kind of thing. So I recently deliberately in October made a change in my life for specific reasons. And one of the ideas I am living under presently now, I've chosen because and I'm aware that I've lived my whole life with indoctrinated beliefs when it comes to this, certainly this area. And I've decided to make changes, and I am actually choosing to live a different reality, and I'm happier than I've ever been, and that is actually occurring for me. But yet I also have recently noticing a little bit of a health issue because of these changes I've made. So I'm interested in listening, and it's about, again, I know it's the perception, and I know it's all in our, a lot of it is in our mind with our thoughts and our thinking. And so that's where, as you said, we need to go inside, and whether we choose to use medications or we choose not to. I never have, but I'm making some changes for specific reasons, and I will not live my life under the guise of fear. Oh my God, don't take a vaccine because you might have side effects or die, or whatever the particular issue might be for people, or just a medication in general or whatever. And I'm saying bull crap to all of it. I'm going to live my life and be happy and come from a place of love and not indoctrinated things, whether they're right or wrong. Again, it's no judgment. So it's interesting, we can change our reality, but I know it is in perception. I know I have a lot of work, a lot of, ways to go, but I can certainly relate to what everyone's sharing today. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gwen. And we are doing it. We're getting there. Absolutely. Suzanne, did you want to share? Because I know you had your hand raised earlier.
If you think I did, I didn't, but I would just, I would just like to say something on the, it's very interesting, this conversation today, because in November, in the course of 6 weeks, my husband and I, between us, had 5 family members hospitalized. And one was in the ICU. And now his mother, who was one of them, was moved from the hospital to a rehab place. And we learned yesterday that she'll be there for another 2 months. And so, as you can imagine, there are many phone calls every day about physical health. And it seems like everything is about that right now. So of course, it's no mistake that I'm here today to listen to this. And thank you all for your contributions. I just want to say one little thing about medications. They're absolutely the belief systems that we hold. I do, I don't, I won't, I wouldn't, I will, you know. I was never a big fan of big pharma. I'm not on any meds at all, and I'm very glad that I'm not. But a few years ago, I got the norovirus, and my husband had to call an ambulance for me, and they took me in, and they used those magic, and they're using magic. They use those magic drugs, and I was like, thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone. So I think if we stay open and realize that Course in Miracles doesn't say don't use the magic, you know. It's and also a huge influence in my life in the last 6 years has been Anthony William, and how he teaches you to rearrange the way you eat. And I had a lot of autoimmune disorders in my life, and I don't have any now. And I think a lot of that is belief. And I believe that he's here now at this time, because most of us, even when we know it's our mind, and even when we know that healing all comes from us, I feel like he's a bridge. Because even those of us who know, we still get stuff still happens, because we're not 100% there all the time. And so that has been extremely helpful for me, realizing that he's kind of acting as a bridge between the two, I think, between not knowing and knowing. So that's what I want to say, and thank you. And thank you everyone for your contributions today. It's great.
What's his name, please? The person you're studying with?
I'll put it in the chat, Hamira.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks, Suzanne. Grace, and then Priscilla quickly.
Well, I have some good news. I joined Last for Living because I've been chronically ill all my life. And throughout the year, my symptoms have drastically reduced. I've been doing a lot of forgiveness, and I'm healing the feeling of separation through these groups. Feel very, very connected to the oneness. And so my symptoms have decreased drastically, and actually my body's rejecting the medication. Every time I try and take it, my body goes, no. So one thing that happens now is I don't give it a name. I don't give it the credit of having a name. And also I don't identify with it anymore. It's just something that passes through all the time. One interesting thing, I'm just rereading Your Immortal Reality by Gary Reynard. And Artem and Purser, his ascended masters that appear to him, they talk about the problem of being a scientist. Scientists know that this world is not real, but they've invested their whole career in being scientists, so they can't tell anybody that this world is not real. So that's very, very funny. And so Gary Reynard spends his life going around telling everybody, look, this world is not real. Do what you like with it. Read the Course in Miracles. And so in answer to Hamira, the body and the brain are both our tools of separation from God. And the mind is what we can change to heal ourselves. So it doesn't matter if it's a mental or a physical illness. Our mind is what we can use, help with the Course in Miracles, help with these groups, to change what we think about our bodies and minds, about our supposed illnesses. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, Grace, I just thought when you said that, so if it's the mind, and since we all share the same mind, then I can clean and not see that anymore, that mental illness. And then I will, whether he's able to do that in this lifetime, I can, because we're all one mind. Oh, that's so brilliant. Thank you.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Sometimes these things are hard to understand for us, but actually we're a lot smarter than we imagine. Just open your mind and let this stuff go in. And even if you don't understand it this moment, you'll understand it the next moment.
Absolutely. Thank you, Grace. Priscilla.
Oh, hi. Mine is a real quick question. It's actually, I was reading Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. And she started a chapter saying, A Course in Miracles says that all disease comes from a state of unforgiveness. And that whenever we are ill, we need to look around to see who it is that we need to forgive. And my question is she quoting it from the general book, or is some specific thread? Because I'm reading the psychotherapy chapter, but I'm not seeing it quoting like in that way, like look around, who do you need to forgive, and start praying around it, you know? And I'm like, I've been doing my forgiveness letters, and I don't think I have anyone else left to forgive or to be forgiven for. And so, yeah, that was my question. Is anywhere specific in the book where we should read? Because I'm reading this chapter that you're sending us today, but it's not as specific as Louise put it. So, yeah. Thank
well,
you.
I think Louise, like Marianne Williamson, like Jennifer Hadley, like so many Course in Miracles students and teachers are gathering the principles and the ideas from A Course in Miracles, but may not be quoting them specifically. But it does say in this section, in the middle of paragraph 8, where he says, perhaps you do not see the role forgiveness plays in ending death and all beliefs that rise from mists of guilt. Sins are beliefs that you impose between your brother and yourself. They limit you to time and place and give little space to you, another little space to him. This separating off is symbolized in your perception by a body, which is clearly separate, and a thing apart. Yet what this symbol represents is but your wish to be apart and separate. So, and Jennifer will say, all forgiveness is self-forgiveness. So, and I'm finding that to be so true. So like last week when I was talking about the person that I was talking to that was in the cycle of intense, terrifying fear, and my mind was saying, shut up, shut up, shut up. I knew that my mind was not saying that to her, and that my forgiveness letter was not to be written to her. My forgiveness letter and my mind was saying that to myself. And so my forgiveness work was to myself. So all of the answers are within. All of the work is within. And we are the ones that we are supposed to forgive, because we are the ones that are not seeing ourselves as perfect, whole, and complete. Gosh, there was, in paragraph 19, where he says, I think it's like the second or third sentence down, let us unite in bringing blessing to the world of sin and death. For what can save each one of us can save us all. That's the one mind, that's oneness. There is no difference among the sons of God. The unity that specialness denies will save them all. For what is one can have no specialness, and everything belongs to each of them. No wishes lie between a brother and his own. To get from one is to deprive them all. And yet to bless one gives blessings to them all as well. And that's why Jennifer is constantly saying all boats rise on the holy tide of love. When we are doing our own work, our own forgiveness work, we are the ones that are appearing to heal, because there is only one. But guess what? We get to bring everybody with us. So that's why I get so excited when I have these realizations like, oh my gosh, I could forgive myself for anything that I did to cause diabetes and high blood pressure and IBS and, anxiety and depression. I can do that. I can do that. And when I do it for myself, I do it for everyone. That is the friggin' coolest thing. So that's why I get so excited when things like that come into my mind, because then it's like, I know I'm going to do it, because I may not be as motivated to actually do it for myself. But when I have the motivation to know that it will heal my son's anxiety and depression, or make sure that he does not end up with diabetes and high blood pressure, sign me up, man. I'm right there. I'm right there. So anyways, so that was that was lively discussion. So yeah, that was chapter 26, paragraph 7, Linda. And yeah, yep. When we do any healing work, it helps and benefits everyone. Absolutely, Gwen. So next week, we will continue in chapter 26, section 8, the immediacy of salvation. Because holy cow, we are on fire. I'm not going to read from the Pathways of Light today because we're way over time again already. But I do want to read, because it's short, from my lesson today, which is lesson 341. That is, I can attack but my own sinlessness. And it is only that which keeps me safe. And it's the prayer at the beginning of the lesson where he says, Father, your son is holy. I am he on whom you smile in love and tenderness so dear and deep, and still the universe smiles back on you and shares your holiness. How pure, how safe, how holy then are we, abiding in your smile with all love bestowed on us, living one with you in brotherhood and fatherhood complete, in sinlessness so perfect that the Lord of sinlessness conceives us as his son, a universe of thought completing him. So that's what I'm going to leave us with today. Thank you, everybody, for another wonderful conversation. I love you all so
Thank
much.
you. Love you. Bye.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.
Thank
Thank you,
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Ted.
Thanks, Linda.
Thank
How
you.
about instead of holy cow, we say holy instant?
Holy instant.
Holy instant.
Holy instant.
Thank you. I just had to
Thank
do
you.
that, Linda. Thank you.
But how will I get my Swiss cheese if I don't have a holy cow?
Become vegan.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you.
Love
Thank you,
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.